Every assistant quit the ruthless CEO until a clumsy, stubborn girl showed up. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, it is free, and it is the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. And let me ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or your country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us come back to our main character. In the center of the city, inside a 40-story glass tower that reflected steel, traffic, and ambition, there was one position nobody wanted anymore: executive assistant to Grant Whitmore. People did not speak his name casually. Inside the company, it was always followed by a pause, a lowered voice, or a warning look. Grant Whitmore was known as brilliant, efficient, and completely unforgiving. At 39, he had built a multi-billion-dollar logistics and technology empire from nothing but precision and control, and he had burned through assistants like paper. Human resources did not keep an official record, but everyone knew the number. 13 assistants in the last 18 months. None of them made it past 30 days. Some left quietly, leaving resignation letters on that desk outside his office. Some cried in the elevator. One walked out during lunch and never came back. The stories circulated through the building like office folklore. He never raises his voice. He remembers every mistake. He watches you like you are a problem he is solving. He does not believe excuses. Outside Grant Whitmore's office sat an immaculate desk. No photos, no coffee mug, no personal items. Just a computer, a phone, and a chair that rarely stayed occupied for long. On a gray Monday morning, that chair was empty again. Another assistant had quit. Human Resources sent the email before noon. Executive assistant position. Immediate opening. Most employees read it, sighed, and moved on with their day. But across town, in a small apartment where the radiator clicked louder than the clock, Olivia Brooks stared at that same email on her phone. She had spilled cereal on the counter that morning while rushing to get ready. Her hair refused to cooperate, no matter how many times she tied it back. She wiped her hands on a towel, reread the salary line, and felt her chest tighten. Olivia was not the kind of person people described as polished. She tripped over her own feet more than once. She talked too fast when she was nervous. Her resume showed jobs that never lasted long, not because she quit, but because life kept forcing her to start over. She knew the reputation. Everyone did. A former coworker once told her, "Grant Whitmore ruins assistants. That job is a career graveyard." Olivia exhaled slowly and locked her phone screen. She needed this job. An hour later, she stood in the lobby of the Whitmore building, staring up at ceilings so high they made her feel smaller than she already did. The floors shone. The air smelled clean and expensive. People moved with confidence, heels clicking, suits pressed, eyes focused forward. Olivia adjusted the strap of her bag and tried not to squeak when one of her shoes betrayed her on the marble floor. At the reception desk, the woman glanced at her resume, then at Olivia. "Executive assistant interview?" she asked. "Yes," Olivia said, then immediately added, "Yes, thank you." The woman handed her a badge without smiling. 39th floor. With her, the elevator ride felt like a test she had not studied for. Olivia watched the numbers climb and pressed her lips together, rehearsing answers she knew she might forget the moment she was asked. When the doors opened, the floor was unnervingly quiet. That was when she saw it. The empty desk. It sat just outside a large corner office, perfectly aligned, untouched, no sign that anyone had ever belonged there for long. Olivia slowed her steps, her confidence wobbling for just a moment. This was where everyone failed. She could turn around. No one would stop her. Instead, she straightened her shoulders, took one steady breath, and walked forward. Inside the office, Grant Whitmore stood with his back to her, facing the window. The city sprawled below, 12 lanes of traffic moving in obedient lines. His posture was rigid, controlled, as if even the skyline answered to him. He did not turn around right away. "Sit," he said calmly. Olivia sat. The chair felt colder than she expected. Grant Whitmore turned then, his expression unreadable, eyes sharp and assessing. He did not smile. He did not offer pleasantries. This was the moment, Olivia realized, when everyone else broke. She did not know it yet, but from this second on, Grant Whitmore was no longer just hiring an assistant. He was testing her. Inside Grant Whitmore's office, the silence pressed heavier than the glass walls. Olivia Brooks sat upright in the chair, her hands folded tightly in her lap, reminding herself not to fidget. The city hummed faintly beyond the window, but inside the room, everything felt suspended, as if time itself was waiting for Grant Whitmore to speak. He did not. Grant walked back to his desk and sat down without looking at her. He opened a thin black folder, scanned a page, then another, as if Olivia were not even there. Seconds passed, then a full minute. Olivia could feel her heartbeat in her ears. Most people would have spoken by now. Most people would have tried to fill the silence. Olivia stayed quiet. Finally, Grant looked up. "You are late," he said calmly. Olivia blinked. "I arrived 15 minutes early." "For the interview," Grant replied. "Not for the job." Her mouth opened, then closed again. She swallowed. "I am sorry," she said. "I will make sure it does not happen again." Grant studied her face, not her words. He watched for defensiveness, for excuses, for resentment. There was none. He slid a document across the desk. "Your responsibilities are listed there. Read them." Olivia reached for the paper. As she did, her elbow caught the edge of the desk. The pen rolled, hit the floor, and bounced once, before stopping near Grant's shoe. Her face flushed instantly. "I am so sorry." She leaned down quickly to retrieve it, knocking her bag against the desk leg in the process. The zipper rattled. Papers shifted. Grant did not move. He did not help. He simply watched. Olivia straightened, clutching the pen like it was something fragile. She forced herself to breathe and began reading. The list was long, too long. Calendar management, confidential correspondence, travel coordination across multiple time zones, board meeting preparation, crisis response, availability beyond standard business hours. At the bottom, one line stood out: other duties as assigned. She looked up. "Is there a training period?" Grant folded his hands. "No." Olivia nodded once. "Okay." That answer surprised him. Most assistants argued at this point. They asked for clarification. They asked for time. They asked for reassurance. Grant leaned back in his chair. "You should know," he said evenly, "that this position has a high failure rate." "I know," Olivia replied. "You know people leave," Grant said. "Yes." "You know they quit," he continued. "Yes." "You know I do not tolerate mistakes." Olivia met his eyes. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "I make mistakes," she said, "but I fix them, and I do not quit." Something unreadable passed across Grant's expression. He stood. "Follow me." Olivia rose too quickly, her chair scraping softly against the floor. She winced, then followed him out of the office. They moved fast. Grant did not slow his stride to accommodate her. He walked with purpose down the hallway, turning sharply into conference rooms, then back out again. Olivia jogged half a step behind, memorizing the layout, the doors, the names etched into glass. "Board meeting tomorrow morning," Grant said without turning around. 8:30 sharp. "I need printed briefs, digital backups, and revised projections." "Yes," Olivia said. "I did not ask if you understood," he replied. "I stated a requirement." "Yes, Mr. Whitmore," she corrected herself. He stopped suddenly. Olivia nearly ran into him. Grant turned to face her. "Do not call me that." She froze. "I am sorry." "Grant, do not apologize for things you have not done wrong," he said. "It wastes time." "Yes," she said again, then hesitated. "Understood." He watched her for a long moment, then nodded once and continued walking. At her new desk, Grant pointed to the computer. "You have 1 hour," he said. "Organize my calendar for the next 2 weeks. Identify conflicts. Resolve them." "Resolve how?" Olivia asked carefully. Grant met her gaze. "Figure it out." He turned and went back into his office, closing the door behind him. The desk felt too clean, too bare. Olivia sat down and stared at the screen. Her hands trembled slightly as she logged in. The calendar loaded, and her breath caught. Meetings overlapped. Calls stacked on top of each other. Red alerts marked international flights, investor dinners, emergency reviews. It was a mess, a deliberate one. Her stomach tightened. This was the point where others panicked. She could almost feel the echo of previous assistants sitting in this chair, realizing they were set up to fail. Olivia closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she got to work. She cross-checked time zones. She moved calls. She sent polite but firm emails. She rescheduled a lunch without knowing whether she had the authority to do so, trusting her judgment anyway. Halfway through, she realized she had forgotten to eat breakfast. Her stomach growled softly. She ignored it. An hour passed. Grant's office door opened. He stood beside her desk, silent. Olivia did not look up. She was on the phone, voice calm. "Yes. I understand it is short notice," she said. "Thank you for your flexibility. We appreciate it." She hung up and finally looked at him. "I resolved 3 conflicts," she said. 2 meetings are moved. 1 call is canceled because it did not require your presence." Grant raised an eyebrow. "You canceled my call?" "Yes," Olivia said. It was redundant. For the first time, Grant Whitmore smiled. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but it was there. The next morning began before sunrise. Olivia Brooks stood at the kitchen counter of her apartment, staring at her phone while the coffee brewed. She reviewed her notes again, then once more, whispering details under her breath like a quiet spell. Times, names, attachments, backup files, printed copies already in her bag. She arrived at the building at 6:45. The boardroom lights were still dim when she stepped inside. Long glass walls, a polished table that could seat 20 people comfortably. She placed folders at every seat with careful precision, aligning each one twice to be sure. Her movements were not graceful, but they were deliberate. At 7:30, executives began to arrive. Some glanced at her briefly. Others did not look at her at all. A few paused, confused, clearly expecting to see a different face. Olivia met each look with a polite nod and a calm smile. Grant Whitmore entered last. He did not acknowledge the room at first. He did not acknowledge Olivia either. He simply took his seat at the head of the table and opened the folder in front of him. For a moment, there was only the sound of pages turning. Grant stopped. He looked up. "These numbers," he said flatly. "They were revised." "Yes," Olivia said immediately. "The updated projections are in section 3. The previous version is removed." Grant flipped to the page. His eyes moved quickly, scanning columns. The room waited. "This adjustment saves 3.2%, one board member said slowly. "How was that achieved?" Olivia spoke before she realized she was speaking. "The overseas shipping delay was temporary," she said. "Once I confirmed that, I adjusted the forecast to reflect normalized delivery times instead of worst-case assumptions." The table went quiet. Grant turned his head slightly toward her. "You confirmed it how?" he asked. "I contacted the regional operations director directly," Olivia replied. "He sent documentation." "Why?" She handed Grant a single page without shaking. Grant read it. Then he nodded once. The meeting moved on. For the next 90 minutes, Olivia did not sit. She moved silently around the room, passing documents, adjusting the projector, answering questions when they were directed at her. When someone tried to dismiss her or speak over her, Grant did not intervene. He watched. After the meeting ended, the board members filed out, some nodding at Olivia with new interest. One lingered long enough to say, "Good work." Grant waited until the room was empty. "You spoke without being asked," he said. Olivia stood still. "Yes, that is usually a mistake," he continued. "I know," she said. "But the information mattered." Grant looked at her carefully. "Do you always decide when rules apply?" "No," Olivia replied. "Only when the work requires it." He held her gaze for a long moment. "Get lunch," he said finally. Olivia blinked. "Excuse me? You have not eaten," Grant said. "You have 30 minutes. "Yes," she said quickly. "Thank you." She left the room slightly dazed. By the time she returned, Grant had already moved on to the next test. The afternoon was relentless. Emails flooded in. Calls overlapped. A supplier missed a deadline. A client demanded an unscheduled call. Grant forwarded everything to Olivia without comment. One message stood out. "Need expense approval. Market urgent." Attached was a request from a senior executive, flagged high priority. The amount was large. The description was vague. Olivia frowned and reviewed it carefully. Something felt wrong. She checked previous records. The pattern did not match. She stood, walked to Grant's office, and knocked once. "Come in," he said. Olivia stepped inside. "I need clarification on this expense request." Grant did not look up. "Approve it." "I cannot," she said. Grant paused. He raised his eyes slowly. "Why not?" "The documentation is incomplete," Olivia replied, "and the request does not align with past approvals. If I sign this, it puts the company at risk." Grant leaned back in his chair. "It comes from someone with authority." "I understand," Olivia said, "but authority does not replace accountability." The room felt suddenly smaller. "You realize," Grant said evenly, "that previous assistants would have approved it without question." "Yes," Olivia said. "That is why they are gone." "Will haven't." The silence that followed was sharp. Grant studied her, not with anger, but with something closer to curiosity. "Leave it," he said finally. "I will handle it." Olivia nodded and turned to go. As her hand reached the door, Grant spoke again. "You chose the harder option." She stopped. It was the right one. When she returned to her desk, her hands were shaking. She did not know it yet, but that moment marked a shift. Grant Whitmore was no longer testing whether she could do the job. He was testing whether she could be trusted. The office settled into an uneasy rhythm after that. Grant Whitmore did not praise Olivia Brooks. He did not soften his tone. He did not make the work easier. If anything, the demands increased. But something subtle changed in the way he watched her. He no longer watched for failure. He watched for choice. Late that afternoon, Olivia stayed at her desk while most of the floor emptied out. The lights dimmed automatically at 6, casting long reflections across the glass walls. She rubbed her eyes, stretched her fingers, and returned to her screen. An alert popped up. "Urgent delivery issue. Warehouse West." She opened the message and scanned it quickly. A shipment scheduled for overnight transport had been delayed due to a routing error. If it missed the window, a key client would lose a full day of inventory. Olivia stood up immediately. She pulled up contacts, cross-checked locations, and made the first call. "Hello, this is Olivia Brooks from Whitmore Logistics," she said calmly. "I am calling about the West warehouse delay." The voice on the other end sounded tired and defensive. "That issue is already logged," the man said. "It will be handled tomorrow." "That is too late," Olivia replied. "We need a reroute tonight." Silence. "That will cost extra," he said. "I understand," Olivia answered. "Please hold." End quote. She placed the phone down and walked to Grant's office. The door was open. He was still there, reviewing reports. "We have a delivery issue," Olivia said. "I can reroute it tonight, but it will increase costs." Grant did not look up. "Fix it." "I need approval," she said. "It will exceed the standard threshold." Grant paused. He leaned back in his chair and studied her. "What would you do if I were not here?" he asked. Olivia hesitated for half a second. "I would reroute it and document the decision." "Why?" Grant asked. "Because losing the client costs more than the reroute," she said. "And because we made the mistake." Grant nodded once. "Do it." She returned to her desk and finalized the decision. The warehouse confirmed the reroute. The shipment would arrive on time. When she hung up, she exhaled slowly. That was when she noticed the cleaning staff nearby. A woman struggled with a heavy trash bag, its contents shifting awkwardly. Olivia stood up and helped her lift it into the bin without being asked. "Thank you," the woman said quietly. "You are welcome," Olivia replied. Grant watched from his office. The next test came the following morning. An email arrived, marked confidential. It contained private information about a colleague, information that could easily be used to gain favor with senior leadership. The implication was clear. If Olivia forwarded it to the right person, she would be seen as helpful, efficient, loyal to power. She did not forward it. Instead, she deleted the message and reported the breach to compliance. By lunchtime, the office buzzed with quiet tension. Someone had noticed. Olivia felt it in the looks she received. Curious, measuring, cautious, she focused on her work. Later that day, Grant called her into his office again. "You deleted an email," he said. "Yes," Olivia replied. "Most people would have used it," he said. "I know," she answered, "but it was wrong." Grant leaned forward slightly. "Even if it helped your position?" "Yes," Olivia said without hesitation. "Even then." The silence that followed was not cold. It was thoughtful. Grant nodded. You chose correctly. Those words landed heavier than any praise. That evening, as Olivia gathered her things, she noticed a note on her desk. It was written in Grant's handwriting. Clean. Precise. Tomorrow. 7:30. Be ready. No explanation. No context. She folded the note carefully and placed it in her bag. As she stepped into the elevator, exhaustion washed over her, but beneath it was something else. A quiet certainty. She was no longer just surviving, and Grant Whitmore was no longer testing her limits. He was testing her character. The next morning arrived with rain streaking down the glass walls of the building. Olivia Brooks stepped out of the elevator at 7:25, the note from Grant Whitmore still fresh in her mind. Tomorrow, 7:30. Be ready. No details, no explanation. She was ready anyway. Grant was already in his office when she arrived, jacket off, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. He glanced at his watch as she entered. Good, he said. You are on time. He handed her a tablet. You are coming with me. To where? Olivia asked. A client meeting, Grant replied. Unscheduled. They rode down in silence. The car ride felt different from the office tests. More exposed. More real. The meeting took place at a private conference room in a downtown hotel. The client was one of the company's largest accounts. Valuable. Difficult. Known for sudden demands. The man wasted no time. This delay last quarter cost us, he said bluntly. I want compensation. Grant listened without interruption. His face remained unreadable. The client leaned back in his chair. Unless, of course, you are willing to adjust certain reporting details going forward. Great. Olivia felt her chest tighten. Grant turned to her. Thoughts? The room went still. This was not a trick buried in paperwork. This was direct. Clear. A test with witnesses. Olivia chose her words carefully. That adjustment would misrepresent performance, she said. It would protect this quarter at the expense of the company's credibility. The client scoffed. That is business. No, Olivia replied calmly. That is risk. Grant watched her closely. If we lose this client, he said, the impact will be significant. I know, Olivia said. But if we compromise our integrity, the damage will be worse. It always is. The silence stretched. Finally, the client exhaled sharply. Then perhaps we are done here. Grant stood. Perhaps we are. They left without shaking hands. Back in the car, Olivia stared out the window, her heart pounding. She expected anger. She expected disappointment. Grant said nothing. When they returned to the building, Grant stopped just before the elevators. You understand what you just did, he said. Yes, Olivia answered. I cost the company money. Grant shook his head slightly. No, you protected it. She looked at him, surprised. That client returned, Grant continued. They always do. People test boundaries. They respect the ones that hold. That afternoon, word spread quickly. Some employees looked at Olivia with admiration. Others looked at her with concern. A few avoided her entirely. She felt the weight of it all pressing in. Near the end of the day, she received an email marked internal. It praised Grant's handling of the client's situation. It did not mention her. She closed it and returned to her work. As the office lights dimmed again, Grant stopped by her desk. You could have stayed silent, he said. I know, Olivia replied. You chose not to. He continued. Yes. Grant nodded slowly. Most people would have protected themselves. Olivia met his gaze. I did. He studied her for a long moment. Then he said, You passed. Those words settled quietly between them. This was no longer about whether Olivia Brooks could survive the job. She had proven something far rarer. She could stand in the room where power bent rules, and she would not bend with it. The office grew quieter as the week went on. By Friday evening, most of the floor was empty again. The city outside the windows glowed with traffic lights and rain-slicked streets. Olivia Brooks sat at her desk, finishing the last of the day's tasks. Her shoulders heavy with exhaustion she did not allow herself to acknowledge. Grant Whitmore had not dismissed her. He rarely did. At 8:15, her screen refreshed with a new message from him. Office. Now, Olivia stood, smoothed her jacket, and walked down the hallway. The sound of her footsteps echoed softly against the glass. Grant's office lights were dimmer than usual. He stood near the window, looking out at the city, his hands in his pockets. He did not turn when she entered. "Close the door," he said. She did. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt different from before. Not sharp, not testing, just heavy. "You passed today," Grant said finally. Olivia nodded. "I know. That was not a compliment," he added. "I know that too," she replied. Grant turned then, studying her face with an intensity that made her straighten instinctively. "Do you know why this position exists?" he asked. Olivia hesitated. "To support you." Grant gave a short, humorless breath. "That is the job description, not the purpose." He walked back to his desk but did not sit. "Every assistant before you tried to be indispensable. They anticipated my needs. They protected themselves. They told me what I wanted to hear." He looked at her. "You do not." "Would I take?" "I try to do what is right," Olivia said quietly. Grant nodded once. "That is exactly the problem." She frowned. "I am sorry?" "Right slows things down," he said. "Right creates friction. Right costs money. And yet," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "it is the only thing that lasts." Olivia did not respond. She sensed this was not a moment to fill the space. Grant's voice lowered. "I built this company by trusting no one, not because I wanted to, but because I learned early what happens when you do." His gaze drifted back to the window. "People take shortcuts. People lie when pressure rises. And when things collapse, they say they were following orders." Olivia stepped forward slightly. "And you test them to see who will not." Grant turned back to her. "Yes," he said simply. The word hung between them. "You are not careless," he continued. "You are not naive. You are not here for approval. That makes you dangerous." Olivia blinked. "Dangerous?" "To the wrong kind of leadership," Grant said. For the first time since she met him, his voice carried something unguarded. Not weakness, not regret, something closer to weariness. "I do not need loyalty," he said. "I need resistance." The realization settled slowly in Olivia's chest. This was not about survival anymore. It never had been. Grant exhaled and straightened. The moment passed, replaced by his familiar control. "You will stay late next week," he said. "There will be more pressure." "I know," Olivia replied. He nodded. "You can go." She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "Grant," she said. "Yes?" "You are not as alone as you think." He did not answer. But as Olivia stepped back into the hallway, she felt something shift behind her. Grant Whitmore had stopped testing her strength. Now, he was testing whether he could trust her with his truth. The reveal came on Monday, not with drama, not with raised voices, but in the one place Olivia Brooks least expected it. The executive floor conference room was full. Department heads, legal counsel, senior partners, a few board members joined by video. The atmosphere was formal, controlled, heavy with anticipation. Olivia stood near the wall with her tablet, reviewing notes, doing exactly what she had always done, supporting, observing, staying invisible. Grant Whitmore sat at the head of the table. "This meeting will be brief," he said. The room settled instantly. Grant tapped the screen in front of him. A slide appeared. Not financials, not projections. A timeline. Dates. Names. Positions. Olivia's breath caught as she recognized what she was seeing. "These," Grant said calmly, "are the executive assistants who have worked in this role over the past 18 months. Murmurs rippled quietly around the table. Grant continued. "Each of them was highly qualified. Each of them failed." Olivia felt her stomach tighten. "This was not due to incompetence," Grant said. "It was due to choice." He advanced the slide. Notes appeared beside each name. Approved incomplete documentation. Ignored compliance flags. Adjusted reports under pressure. Protected authority over accountability. Grant's voice remained even. "They did what was easy, what was expected, what was safe." Then the final slide appeared. One name. Olivia Brooks. The room went silent. Olivia felt heat rush to her face. She had not been warned. She had not been prepared. "These tests," Grant said, "were intentional." Her chest tightened. The delays, the conflicts, the silence, the authority, pressure. All of it. Grant turned his head slightly, his eyes finding Olivia for the first time in the meeting. "You were being evaluated." A low murmur spread through the room, louder now. Olivia stepped forward instinctively. "You tested me?" Grant did not soften. "Yes, probably." Her voice shook despite her effort. "Without telling me?" "Yes." "Without my consent?" "Yes." The room felt smaller, warmer, heavier. "That is unethical," someone said quietly. Grant nodded. "Correct." Olivia stared at him. Hurt flashed across her face before she could stop it. "So what?" she said, her voice steady but strained. "This was all an experiment?" Grant did not look away. "No. It was a filter." "For what?" she asked. "For integrity under pressure," he replied. "For resistance when obedience would have been easier." Olivia clenched her hands at her sides. "You let me believe I was failing. You let me believe I was disposable." Grant's jaw tightened. "Yes, that was cruel," she said. Grant exhaled slowly. "I know." The room waited. "I built this company by refusing to lie," Grant said. "And I nearly destroyed it by surrounding myself with people who would." He turned fully toward Olivia now. "You did not protect me," he said. "You protected the company. Even when it cost you." Olivia's voice dropped. "You do not get to hurt people to prove a point." Grant nodded once. "You are right." The words landed harder than any defense. "This test ends today," he said to the room. "Effective immediately, the assistant role is redefined. Authority with accountability. Independence with protection." He looked back at Olivia. "The decision is yours," he said. "You can walk away. No consequences, no conditions." "Hope." The silence stretched. Olivia swallowed. She looked around the room. At the power. At the structure. At the truth now exposed. Then she met Grant's eyes. "This is not about whether I passed," she said quietly. "It is about whether you deserve someone who will stay." The room held its breath, and for the first time since she arrived, Olivia Brooks was no longer being tested. Grant Whitmore was. The room slowly emptied after the meeting. Executives left in silence. Screens went dark. The weight of what had been revealed lingered in the air long after the door closed behind the last person. Olivia Brooks remained standing where she was, her tablet held loosely at her side, her thoughts anything but steady. Grant Whitmore stayed seated. For the first time since she met him, he did not look like the most powerful person in the room. He looked like a man waiting for a verdict. "Olivia," he said quietly. She turned toward him. "I need honesty," she replied. "Not control. Not tests." "You have it," Grant said. He stood and walked toward her, stopping at a respectful distance. "I crossed a line." "Yes," Olivia said. "I justified it as necessary," he continued. "I told myself that pressure reveals truth, that good intentions excuse bad methods." Olivia did not interrupt. "I was wrong," Grant said. Those words were not spoken often in his world. They landed with weight. "I cannot undo what I did," he continued. "But I can take responsibility for it." Daw. He reached into his jacket and placed a folder on the table between them. "This is a formal restructuring proposal," he said. "It redefines the executive assistant role. Clear authority, written protections, independent reporting access to compliance and the board. No informal tests, no silence as punishment." Olivia opened the folder slowly. She read every line. This was not symbolic. It was structural. "You are making this public," she said. "Yes," Grant replied. "Effective immediately. Not just for you, for anyone who comes after." She looked up at him. "And if the board disagrees?" Grant met her gaze. "Then they will have to disagree with me publicly." The sincerity in his voice stopped her. "And my decision?" Olivia asked. Grant nodded. "Is yours. Stay, leave, or redefine the terms further. I will honor it." Silence stretched between them again, but this time it was not a weapon. Olivia closed the folder. "You hurt people," she said. "Not just me." "I know," Grant replied. "You taught them that worth was conditional," she continued. "That survival mattered more than integrity." Grant did not defend himself. Olivia exhaled slowly. "If I stay, it is not because I passed your test." "I understand," Grant said. "It would be because you failed," she said, "and chose to change." Grant nodded once. "That is fair." She studied him for a long moment, searching for the calculation she had learned to expect. It was not there. "I will stay," Olivia said finally. "On one condition." "Name it," Grant replied. "You stop testing people in private," she said. "If leadership requires courage, then you show it in the open." Grant did not hesitate. Agreed. That afternoon, an internal announcement went out company-wide. The executive assistant role had been restructured. New protections, new authority, a new standard. There were questions. There was resistance. But there was also something else. Respect. As Olivia returned to her desk, she noticed something different. The chair was no longer just empty furniture waiting to be abandoned. It was hers. Grant Whitmore stood in his office, watching the floor return to motion. For the first time, power in that building was not enforced through fear. It was earned, and Olivia Brooks had changed the rules without ever raising her voice. The change did not happen overnight, but it happened. In the weeks that followed, the office felt different. Meetings were still intense. Deadlines were still unforgiving. Grant Whitmore did not become softer. He became clearer. Decisions were documented. Authority was defined. Silence was no longer used as a weapon, and the empty desk outside Grant's office stayed occupied. Olivia Brooks moved through her days with the same quiet focus she always had. But now, people looked at her differently. Not with fear, not with pity, with trust. New assistants were hired for other departments. They were trained differently, supported differently, protected. One afternoon, Olivia overheard a junior employee say, "If you mess up, tell the truth. This company does not punish honesty anymore." She paused when she heard that. It mattered. Late one evening, Grant stood in his office as Olivia prepared to leave. The city outside glowed with steady light, no longer harsh, just present. "You changed this place," Grant said. Olivia shook her head. "I did not. I just refused to bend." "Mended." Grant nodded slowly. "That is harder." He hesitated, then spoke again. "I owe you more than an apology." Olivia met his eyes. "You already paid it." "How?" he asked. "By choosing differently when it mattered," she replied. Grant exhaled quietly. "I spent years believing leadership meant pressure, that if I pushed hard enough, the right people would rise." "And now?" Olivia asked. "Now I know the right people were leaving," he said. They stood in silence for a moment, not uncomfortable, not heavy, just honest. Grant reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small framed card. It was the company's values statement. He placed it on the shelf behind his desk, visible from the doorway. "I used to keep that locked away," he said. "It felt performative." Olivia smiled faintly. "Values only matter when they cost something." Grant looked at her. "They cost me control, and gave you trust," she replied. The next morning, an internal survey circulated. Employee engagement scores rose. Turnover dropped. Something had shifted at the core. Grant Whitmore was still a ruthless CEO, but now, ruthlessness meant refusing shortcuts, refusing silence, refusing to trade integrity for speed. As for Olivia Brooks, she never became loud. She never became flashy. She never tried to be impressive. She simply stayed. And in doing so, she proved something no test ever could. That true strength does not survive pressure by hardening. It survives by choosing what is right, even when power is watching. Every assistant had quit the ruthless CEO, until a clumsy, stubborn girl showed up and changed everything.